Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a Codex special presentation with none other than the creators of Massive Publishing's Ramgod, Morgan and Owen Rosenblum. Ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be a fantastic time, and we have got a lot to talk about. Before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get some business out of the way real quick. Help pay the bills.
Yes.
Morgan, Owen, please let everybody know where they can go to find Ramgod either through ordering or getting it at their LCS.
Local comic shops, right, is the preferred way, in my opinion, just because I love supporting local comic shops. But it's always available online at Massive Publishing directly too. We got a ton of different covers too, like variants for issue number 1. Remember, guys, this is issue number 1 of the entire series. It's not like the new arc or anything like that. So hopefully one day these will be worth something. With some of these like incredible artists, we've had people like David Mack featured on a cover. Just to name like one of, I think there's 8 different variants for this. They're all incredible in their own way. And like the series itself is a ton of fun, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, local comic shops and then massivepublishing.com and then all these little backslashes, but you'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, we are also going to be talking about a project that the brothers are working on called Winds of Numa Sera. Let's go ahead and let people know where they can go to find that real quick.
So you can go to windsofnumasera.com. That's phonetically how it sounds. Winds, W-I-N-D-S. It's right there on the screen. So I don't know if I need to spell it out also.
Yeah. But, yeah, we'll be diving into a lot more of that later tonight too. And also, ladies and gentlemen, to find both bits, Ramgod and Winds of Numa Sera, you guys have a website.
Right. Darkrose.io. That's our creative studio. So check it out. We got a lot of different stuff going on there. So I think you will kind of pick your poison, so to speak.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of good stuff on there, guys. Believe me when I say that when you head that way, you will not be disappointed.
No.
And excuse me, if you're new here, ladies and gentlemen, we got something for you. We want to give it to you. Jamie, what would that be?
Our socials, guys. Find us at the CODEX Station on all platforms. All you gotta do is type in the CODEX Station. That's where you're gonna find us.
There you go. And after you have clicked the like, share, subscribe, and or follow on your favorite social media platforms, you're going to be sweaty. Your shirt's going to be kind of ruined. You need to head somewhere to get that. That would be the codexstation.com for all your Codex needs. Get some merch, meet the team, and so much more. Once again, the codexstation.com, ladies and gentlemen. And while you're live tonight, memberships and super chats are available right now. If that is something that you feel like you want to do, it is never expected, but it is always appreciated. All right, now that the business is out of the way, gentlemen, we need to talk about this.
Yes, there's so much to go on.
Look at that. God, that's so amazing.
Ramgod. Specifically for the 2 brothers, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Half Owen, half Morgan.
So, Jamie, you've got the first question, man. Let's go ahead and tear it out.
Yo, God. So how did this project even come about? Is my first question. Like, between both of you, you know, being brothers, wanting to work creatively together, how much was it a pitch to each other to get this even started?
Owen pitched it to me, to be honest with you. So I've been working in comics and I like writing, you know, professionally, I guess, or whatnot for like 12, 13 years now. And this was something that like Owen had worked with me on other projects before, but never like co-writing them from the start. And that I think it was just during COVID, Owen, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Take over from here.
Yeah. So like, as I was saying, like earlier, kind of in like the pre-show stuff, like I'm a producer by trade. So my involvement with Morgan and kind of his endeavors was always from a production standpoint and like some business affairs stuff and whatnot. So doing Ramgod really when kind of the world, you know, was paused and this was during COVID and everyone was, you know, washing their Amazon packages, not knowing if the world was going to end the next day. We just kind of were sitting at home. Like, I think a lot of people like, oh, let's like play some video games. Let's watch some stuff and like just figure out what's going to happen tomorrow. And and I basically just kind of sat down on my computer and was like, Morgan's always creating all this stuff and I'm jealous about it. And kind of, I want to create a world, and cyberpunk to me seems like a totally underutilized and underexplored genre. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to create something dope in this space. Morgan actually was playing, I think at that time, Cyberpunk 2077, which
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, I was about to say Cyberpunk
yeah.
kind of hit at that point.
Yeah, we love that, and we give plenty of shout outs to it. Their world building was just incredible. And funny enough, and I think I just watched Blade Runner 2049 too. And like the timing of between him playing that game and me watching the film, which I also think doesn't get enough love, I was like, you know what? Like, let's create something in this space. And everyone was masking up and like not knowing what was happening. And then if you notice in like the first page of the first issue, like you see a lot of people wearing helmets, and we're talking about air quality stuff.
Yeah.
We're heavily influenced, as we said at that time, by what was going on in the world and COVID and stuff. So anything, I was like, hey, I understand world building and this is something I'm very good at, but like characters and character development and stuff is not necessarily my strength. And that's one of Morgan's. So I was like, you know what? I've seen his strengths and he's kind of a creative powerhouse in his own right. So I was like, teach me, bring me in, let me help with this. And I got this idea and like, let's kind of expand upon it. And he was like, say less. And
well, I think actually at first I was like, I gave you like homework. I was like, if you're gonna pitch if I'm gonna like spend time considering working on this with you from scratch and taking away from other like creative endeavors, I was like, come up with like a series Bible or some sort of like world Bible so that I can understand your vision and like lay some foundation work for me, and then let me like evaluate it. And then Owen's like the king of mood boards, right? Like putting together literally like a Pinterest, but organized based on this is like, okay, this is the city that we're going to start in. And this is like the backstory of the city. And then
I'm going to show some of that artwork while you go.
I was about to say, as we talk about it, because it's also easy for me to like talk about.
It's interesting he's talking about the mood board aspect here too, because like we also, since we work with, as I said, my background's in video production. So just working with creatives of all walks of life, from like artists to directors and editors and animators and all different types of stuff, you have to be really like, no one's a mind reader, right?
Yeah.
And creatives all have their own kind of rhyme and reason. The most helpful thing is giving a very detailed creative brief and then kind of letting them kind of run with that. And Morgan and I take a lot of pride and joy, and we take a lot of time, we're very meticulous with our creative briefs to really show and tell.
I love the fact, Morgan, that you didn't treat this like a my brother's coming in, we're going to work on this together as brothers. You treated this as a business proposition, right?
No, he was tougher with me than he probably would be with someone else.
And I can understand that. Believe me, I just think that's really cool that that you took this incredibly seriously, and this is the result of that, and that is just so amazing to me.
That's just the title page, by the way. So we wanted to get creative in every single avenue possible in this story. So like you'll notice on this page too, like there's the amazing colors and framework, which we will also notice like bleeds out to the edges of the page. Too. We wanted it to feel cinematic and dynamic. But we also added in like these like these almost like UI style, they're augmented reality styled
on the top of the page
and bottom.
That
change from page to page. They're like extra story fillers that will tell you kind of more about what's going on in the world and like kind of set the mood. So if there's like a bank robbery going on or something like that, it'll be like alert, security protocol engaged like on the top. So even though everything takes place in like the real world, it's not like a virtual reality or anything like that. This is all present day, or not present day, but like,
in the future.
The future, present, like meaning you're there. You're not like plugged in or logged in or like on or anything.
And Morgan explained like how like we started with a different kind of format and like how we had to work with what we had.
That was the other part. So like initially it was there's like some complicated backstory to like how we ultimately got the rights back to our own property.
Do you guys want to dive into that?
There's definitely a political component. There's kind of like political component and backstory. If this like project looks vaguely familiar, there is a history here and a kind of a complex one. But Morgan,
I'll be brief about it. So like I used to work at Heavy Metal. I was the managing editor there and the creative director. And
rest in peace.
I know they're still alive. I mean, like it's still a company. It's just on pause, but it's been on pause for like, I don't know, 3-4 years now. For, I don't know, however long it's been for a while. And when I was working there, I wanted to, I'm always working on comics and stuff, like writing my own stuff on the side. And obviously there's an opportunity for me to bring it straight to the magazine that I work at, because we publish comics and original stories and series. So I Owen and I worked on this for a while, and then we decided that instead of like shopping it out to like Darkrose and everyone else, we were like, well, let's see if this is a good spot for it. This is like a good property for heavy metal.
Yeah.
So we pitched it to them, and they loved it. And immediately we're like, yeah, let's do it.
And for context, it was also like in the same way you said that Morgan was like seriously vetted me when I brought him the project, because Morgan worked there. They even more so vet this project because they didn't want to give preferential treatment to someone.
Right.
Who worked there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like there was no like nepotism going on with like, oh well, just because he works here, he can have anything published. It was like no,
it worked actually the opposite. That's my point.
Yeah, right. Because we need to make sure like we're protected in the event. Like we're smart enough to know that like things can go wrong. Like I've worked in publishing and comics long enough now to know that like things can stay in development hell for a while, or like what would happen if like, it doesn't come out in 2 years. Like we.
1,000,000%. And I come from video production, and if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Trust me.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is Murphy's Law. So anyway.
Oh, by the way, do you know where Murphy's Law first appeared?
Hulk One Media, I think.
There we go.
You're about to make a lot of people happy.
Go ahead, Morgan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Where was I? So, ultimately, we signed a contract with them to get it published. They paid for it, but we owned the rights because it was our story. We didn't take any cut or payment ourselves. We put it all into to the artist. We were just like, no, if it's gonna go to us, let's just do better artwork. Let's get more cool stuff made for this series. And that was like our dream for it. But what wound up happening was that as the series went on, like bills started piling up for the company. They couldn't make payments on time. And so ultimately they had to like pause our comic. And like the breach of the contract meant that they couldn't publish our work, but we couldn't have access to the artwork because they paid for it. So it was like both of us couldn't utilize it, which sucked. Yeah. So we around this, I left out an important aspect, which is that towards the end, or like right before like the heavy metal kind of shut down, they were looking into partnering with Whatnot, which is Massive's like a parent company or something. And they Massive or Whatnot at the time had come into like potentially like co-publish heavy metal, and they looked at the Rolodex or like the lineup of all the upcoming series to see like, what do you guys have coming out? What are some new projects and they saw Ramgod and were like, what's this? This one was cool. It was their idea to pull it from it was supposed to be in the magazine. So this all started because Owen was like, tell them how it was formatted. It was initially like magazine sizing, which is the same sizing as like Wins and Numa Sera, much like wider. It's larger, right? But that doesn't really work so well as like a single issue comic because A, it doesn't fit in the sleeves, which sucks. And then B, it's just a little like floppy with that one, unless you don't have like a full collected trade already or a graphic novel. So we were like, all right, if we'll have to reformat it. And the options were either like shave off artwork off the sides, which we were like, no, that we're going to waste like beautiful artwork and colors. But then the other option, if you pull up that the page again, you'll see it was like we shrunk it slightly and it created like a black margin at the top and the bottom, which kind of like imagine what that page looks like without that cool stuff on the top and bottom. It's not nearly as cool. It just looks like dead space.
See, when I was reading this, that was the first thing that I noticed was that stuff on the top and the bottom. And I started really paying attention to that. And that gives so much more depth with just a sentence or a blurb into what's going on.
Yeah. We just wanted to utilize, like we're storytellers, right? So we were like, how do we kind of add subtext here to our story? It's like closed caption almost,
Well, even that, utilizing the empty space.
Yeah, it's like we turn a negative into a positive, I think, to be honest. Yeah. Where it's almost like now I prefer like the comic with those things in it because I feel like it adds a level of just
absolutely. We grew to really love it, and there's, as we said, there's a lot of subtext in those things, and plus like we play video games too, so there was that element when we were thinking about whenever you play a video game, you kind of have your on your screen, you have the top and bottom stuff that's going on. So,
well, Jamie, earlier today, you and I were talking about panel placement. Do you want to go a little more into that?
Yes. So, one of the questions I did have for you guys, like even just glossing over the first time before even reading it, when you sat down and kind of were like storyboarding this idea, was it essentially to break from panel to panel? Because I've seen in a lot of the work that you guys like have that you guys go out of panel a lot. And I mean, I love that, especially in here, like even throwing a punch or, the fight sequence that you guys put in there. from the ribs showing the X-ray, the ribs breaking, going from panel breaks. Like,
we got to give
part of it, or
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I was just saying, was that part of it when you guys saw it before?
I mean, I would love to take credit for it, but that's really more on the artist than it is on us. That's like we tell the artist ahead of time, like, get creative, have fun with this. Don't stay like think outside the box, draw outside the box. Like we say,
and I feel like they drew outside the lines on this one, like really well.
Yeah, Morgan also. I'll give him some credit and pat on the back. He's a fantastic art director. Like really one area where my brother completely shines is with art direction. And we are very much so, first off, like a motto we have is check your egos at the door, best idea wins, period. And
our own egos, not other people.
Doesn't matter.
Everyone has to check them at the door. It's like, take your shoes off before you come in, like egos.
Yeah, like everyone on our team, we say that immediately.
I say that to Tim before every show.
Yeah. Yep. It's like, it doesn't matter who the idea comes from, but as long as it's like the best idea in the room, it's going to win kind of thing. And something that I was saying before, with the artist too, is we're very big on layouts. So we do very rough layouts in the beginning so that it saves the artist. You don't want to do rework and have them, like get frustrated further down the line. So we like have them do very rough layouts. And then those are the things we work with to nail the perspective.
To be clear though, everyone does layouts first. I don't know any artist that goes straight to like inks. It's always like layouts, pencils, inks, if they work that way in the color.
Look at some of these other pages.
We definitely like spend a lot of time in the layout stage. Almost, it's way more important than the other stages because it's like the bones, right? It's the foundation. So
pre-production.
But what we do, and this is a credit to Owen as well as an art director, which is finding shots or scenes from other like movies, other comics, whatever it is. Can be anything that captures the essence of the shot that we want, right? It can be
it's the visual references, as we said before.
Well, that was like one thing that I really loved about this, like the pacing of Ramgod. I was in from panel one, like how it all started, and going into character development, even the smaller characters that didn't have a whole lot of screen time, I became incredibly invested in because they had a lot of dialogue, and you got a sense. Each character had their own personality. When you were doing the events of Ramgod itself, which was epically amazing, by the way, I was excited. I was following right along. I was cheering along with the crowds, and I forget the main character's name, but his son, who he was going to pick up. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, should we give I don't know if anyone knows right now. We're just talking about they have no idea what the premises of the story. Should we give that?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, please do dive into this because like my sense of feeling when I read this was it was a mixture of Tron, it was a mixture of Blade Runner, it was a mixture of.
I felt a lot of Tron in this,
like heavy anime like Akira and things like that. Maybe even Venus Wars.
Yeah. Well, real fast, we do have a question from chat, if you guys don't mind, before we get into that one. Sal wants to know, is it a mini or an ongoing?
The goal is ongoing. We wrote this to be. It's a 6-issue mini arc. I mean, or like we call it like season 1, right? It's the first arc, but without putting any spoilers out there, we made sure to put a night, we close one arc, chapter kind of thing, and then open there's something been building throughout the background of all of season 1, so that it clearly leaves the door open for 2. And as part of our initial pitch, we pitched them on what we would do in season 2 arc, so that they knew hey, look, we've been thinking really far ahead for this. And as Owen will probably get into a little bit more later on this call, we talk about big world, tight lens. So we always start with the tight lens, and then we just, as you get more comfortable in the world and familiar with it, we pull out so you get to see more of it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. I was just going to say, if anybody from Massive is watching this, this needs to be pushed to many seasons.
Because it's already on my pull list.
Well, I'm sure they talk to us. They want to do it, but it's also they're running a business. So if you guys all like it, the best thing you can do is tell your friends, talk about it, get people to support it, buy the comics and stuff, because then that's going to be ultimately what allows us to go to season 2.
Yeah. Absolutely. But go ahead, Owen. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, I was just going to build off the thing that Morgan always talked that we always talk about, which is taking the tight lens to a big world thing, and that really resonating with us and being at our essence, being New Yorkers and native New Yorkers too, because you're you're an ant, part of a colony kind of thing. Our lives, we're the protagonists of our own story, right? But we live in a massive city where there's so much going on at the same time. So we take that same approach to these stories, which is like Clint and Malcolm and this whole thing. It's still a tight lens in their world, and as we build upon the series, we will zoom out and zoom out and zoom out.
Yeah. Nice. Well, let's go ahead and dive into exactly what Ramgod is about, so that way people can
Go for it, bro.
Right, so meet Clint Bowler. Do you have any of the characters, PNGs, by the way?
I can get those
Not
while
knowing.
you're talking. Absolutely.
Because I know you can throw them up as I'm talking. So
Yeah.
meet Clint Bowler. He's a 35-year-old patrolman, police officer who works as a beat cop in New City, which is the name of the our sort of metropolis type of Gotham that we created. And he's a former superstar athlete that was drafted #1 overall to be in the NFL.
Yeah.
But
Think like LeBron James of football, basically.
Right? But we meet him at 35, not when he was coming out of college. And what you find out is that he used to be this superstar athlete, but he had gotten in with some bad people, right? Like his godfather it was the head of the Chinese mob because of another player that he grew up with, kind of took him under his uncle, took him under his wing. And so Mr. Zhao got Clint involved with the Chinese mob, money laundering, trafficking, all these things that he was just interested in as just almost like a why am I blanking? Like a Sinatra type, right? I don't know if you guys know about it. It's Sinatra was supposedly heavily associated with the mafia. He was never officially in, or at least that we knew of, but he was always hanging around that crowd. So anyway, Clint, as a 21-year-old, was into that crowd, and ultimately he gets implicated in all of these crimes, criminal activity, and because of that, the NFL bans him from the league, and no sponsors will touch him and all this other stuff. So he's got to completely tarnish. Yeah, it tarnishes everything. He's no longer nobody will touch him. No league will touch him, nothing. So he's got to completely rethink his life. And now fast forward 15 years, he's now on the street and narrow, but kind of in a dead end job where he hasn't even made detective after a while. He's just in the same spot, and he's not a particularly good dad. He's got a 15-year-old kid named Malcolm who lives with his ex-wife or his ex-girlfriend, and that's Malcolm, and his stepdad, and Clint gets to see his kid once a month for a weekend maybe. And even when he has him, he almost doesn't know what to do with him. He has a hard time connecting with his kid, but he loves him. He's just not, I don't think he loves himself really. So it's hard to, love other people if you can't really love yourself. But anyway, that's one storyline. The other main one is that Malcolm is obsessed with this new sport that's in its second or third year called Ramgod, which is this gladiator games, American Ninja Warrior meets Formula One racing meets it's got three different sort of events to it. It's got racing, it's got combat, and it's got climbing or descent. And it's done in sort of an Olympic style point system. But the cool thing is that everyone wears these suits, right? And it takes place in the real world. So it's not you're going to player one territory or anything like that, or VR. It's all real. And the stakes are extremely high. If you get hurt, you can get hurt really bad. You could even die in the sport. So anyway, all of the participants, the athletes, all have suits and gear that are equipped with pretty much all the coolest, crazy stuff, jetpacks and armor and anything that you could think of. But they're all locked when the events start. So the only way to unlock them is to acquire boosts, almost like Mario Kart style, boxes and stuff.
I don't know if anyone in your audience has ever seen Centurions, but that was a thing for us with growing up. Very nostalgic. Exactly. Right. That we were thinking about top of mind when we were kind of creating this. We're
that's great.
Right. Centurions.
Yeah. So you can unlock these boosts now, but think about this. Let's just say that you were in the climb, right? And you were to fall off the mountain or the building you're scaling. Technically the league to save the athlete could easily just unlock the boost inside their suit so that they could, parachute down or jetpack or whatever. They don't, because that's not how the game works, and they got to be fair. So there's a really dark aspect of that.
Also,
but anyway,
and Morgan's talking about boost, just for context. It's a thing that gives players and teams competitive advantages. And basically think if Mario Kart and sponsor gifts from the Hunger Games had some weird acid baby.
Well, I love that one part, what is it? Where is it? Page 6, where they're fighting, and with the more connections and things like that, and the winning of the fight, they gain these boosts. But there's penalties for being overzealous or unnecessary roughness and stuff like that. And the character Vex, who's here, is giving this other dude the business, and she gets the boost that she needs for the team, but she goes a little bit crazy and takes one of those boosts away, and the team kind of gets after her for it. Like, way to go, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So we had this idea because we were thinking about, Owen and I like have always wanted to like racing, like NASCAR or Formula One, but Formula One's not that really available in the United States as much. And NASCAR, they just go in circles for a while. So we always thought it would be cool though. Like it definitely has its moments, but like, wouldn't it be kind of cool if like certain things that maybe your teammates were doing in a different event, right? Like while everyone else is just kind of in this long form race, could help the race aspect of it. And that kind of like led us to the concept of how Ramgod works, which is in issue 1, you get to see like Vex is fighting in like a different arena for like a different audience group. And as the two competitors like kind of build up damage points against their opponent just by like literally hurting them and destroying them. They cross a threshold, and at one point it triggers a boost for their team, which then can be used on a different course. So like if you're behind, you're in like last place, and all of a sudden your fighter on your team like racked up some points, then all of a sudden you unlock 3 boosts like nitrous oxides. You can now all of a sudden like, or whatever, and that's the kind of stuff that we had a lot of fun doing. So that's just like the sport aspect, which is called Ramgod, by the way.
Wes, it is a fun story, buddy. This is an amazing story.
Thanks, Wes.
Dude. And so ultimately, though, what we find, like, there's 8 teams in the league, okay, and each one of the teams, and this is very like cyberpunk themed, is owned by and run by a corporate sponsor, like a big tech giant in some like sort of monopolized sector, except for one team, the Barracudas, which are not owned by a corporate sponsor. Instead, they are the people's team. They are crowdfunded through like a Patreon type of, or like,
think like the Green Bay Packers, basically.
Right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, they're able to, and for the record, like the sport is extremely expensive. Like the insurance rates are crazy. Like the amount of money you have to spend on the tech itself to like build the vehicles and just compete in it. And because they don't have a corporate sponsor, like they have to get it from the people. But what we find out, and this is like the main thing that like kind of makes our story fun, is that the Barracudas actually are bank robbers on the side, and are laundering money through the crowdsourcing platform to fund their stuff. No one knows that, obviously, but except for the Barracudas. Now, here's where the inciting incident, or like the sort of the new thing like comes into play that ties Clint's story and Malcolm's story and the Barracudas and Ramgod story all together, is that going into the new league year, the all teams, right? The league has mandated that every team has to add an additional human player to their team. And the reason I say human player is because currently you can have one bot on your team, which everyone does. So like when you were talking about Vex.
But other people have cyber enhancements and things like that too.
Oh, yeah. They have like mods and stuff.
It wouldn't be cyberpunk if people didn't have cyber.
Yeah,
right.
Yep. But what we did is we made it cool that there's like, we looked at them almost like they were like steroids to a degree. So like if like you test past the threshold, like you're too cybernetic or you're too modded out, like you're disqualified. You're too far gone to be a bot. So like one of the players on the Barracudas is like always pushing the envelope, and he may just be a little over it and stuff.
Is that Remer?
Remer. Yeah, Remer.
Yeah, Remer.
Yeah, that guy
right there.
He's the asshole in the group. There's a few
always
of
get
them.
an asshole in the group, fiercely loyal.
Yeah, Wes, our very own Wes
We're making a fan of Wes. I love it, buddy.
Yeah, he says that this would make a great television series. I think it would be perfect as animated. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Someone else, I think,
your mouth to God's ears, brother.
I think Richard asked earlier, like, what other artists like inspired us? Like,
I was just about to pull that up.
Early on, for me, I'm like a humongous Jim Lee fan. Like, that's probably the first artist that got like Wildcats, like really got me into drawing, and like my early stuff looked like it was definitely reminiscent of that. But again, I'm not the artist of these series. I'm an art director, so I work with the artist closely.
Totally. It's Todd McFarlane for me, I would say.
Right on.
We're huge Spawn fans, and I also remember when they adapted it. Speaking of like TV shows, like I remember even when they did the HBO adapted series, and it just blew my mind. And I remember I'd never seen anything like that. And this was like coming from like me watching like X-Men, you know what I mean, and things like that. And like obviously Batman the Animated Series, which is like one of the best ever.
Oh
But
yeah.
I remember when I saw that kind of R-rated thing on HBO, it just made me think like I gotta do this for a living. Like I gotta get involved in this somehow, some way, and just kind of continue that because it really broke, I think, a lot of boundaries.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Morgan. I'm sorry.
I'll talk a lot. So if you have questions, by all means.
Well, no, finish up what you got to say about the world
About the
of
artist and stuff?
Ramgod, yeah, and the artist.
Oh,
And the,
yeah. So to add, so those are the ones that like inspired us growing up, right? But like, and obviously still great artists. But you know, now that we get to actually like work with a lot of like, we had an opportunity to work with David Mack, amazing, right? On the for the cover,
the A cover.
A cover of issue 1. We didn't get to do anything other than a cover, but that was still pretty cool. That's Carlos Totoli, which is incredible art and all different styles, right? Like he works in 3D art, which is cool. And it's crazy too, because you look at that and like now with like AI and stuff, you're like, oh, that's AI. Like, no, that's not. That is 100% real art. It's just like, but that's what AI gets their awesome shit from, is like people like that.
Well, see, you've got the A cover here, and then this is the C cover, the magazine homage, which I really dig.
Who does watercolors? That is done with watercolor.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Hector Trinick right there.
And then this homage to the Running Man. This is the F cover, ladies and gentlemen. This is just so fantastic. And there's other covers too. I don't want to give it all away. I want you guys to be surprised at your LCS.
Yeah, check out the link.
Yeah, definitely. And
they're online.
So again.
Like, they're all up there right now.
Yeah.
But then like, so like now, like getting to work with the artist Eduard Petrovich, who did the interiors for this. I got to work with Philippe Andrade, who did like the Many Deaths of Layla Starr. And we actually had him do like, there's an 8-chapter book, but one chapter is in a totally different art style. So the whole book is like its own art style. And then when you get to one chapter and you're like, what the heck is going on here? It's a flashback chapter that is done from a completely different perspective. It's like, the book paints this one sort of faction or kingdom as like these really bad people that had lost this great war, and they were like tyrants and all this other stuff. And then you finally get to see the story from their side in this flashback. And we wanted it to feel jarring because you're actually seeing it from a different perspective. Yeah. So like that was awesome being able to, and we Philippe Andrade at the time when we reached out, like we really had to sell him on this because he was like super booked up working with Marvel and you know, I think he had done, he had just finished Captain Marvel, I want to say, right, Owen?
I think so.
Yeah, and then he was working on Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and I was like, look, can we just get you for a chapter on this? Like we pitched him our vision and everything, and he's like, let me read a sample of your stuff because he wasn't familiar with our game. And then he read it and was like, all right, I'm in, boys. Like, this is great. Like,
let's do this.
No, so like that was
it's like the same with film and entertainment, right? We're big believers, kind of like it starts and ends with the script first, and then you build everything off of that. And there's no knock against the artists and all that other stuff, but if they're working with a shitty script, it's tough.
They can only make it look so good.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of the script real fast, another question we have for you guys.
Right on. Sal says, did you two create the whole story, then broke it out to 6 parts, or vice versa?
So initially, when I said we were doing it as like in the magazine for heavy metal. So like, because that's not even like full issues, right? Those are like usually 8 pages to 14 pages, which is
just like a blurb in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's
story.
Yeah. Well, I'm just mean like in the magazine, like they do serials where they'll take like several scenes or whatever and they'll like splice them in each one, which is hard to tell a story consistently like that because like, granted, it comes out every month, but like people may have forgotten what was the last thing, you know, that happened. So anyway, we don't really think about it like, well, let's write it in installments or in chapters at first. For us, it's more like, let's map out, and we're big planners, right? Everything we never just start being like,
we like to say it's the Breaking Bad approach.
Yeah.
You know your
map out. Now, that's not to say we don't have like ideas for scenes before we map out everything. Like as we're building up the world, sometimes we're like, I just have this scene in my mind where like there's this cool conversation that's going down at a diner, right? Like Tarantino works that way too, where he'll start with an idea or like a scene that he builds around that. So we've done that, but we'll map out like the story. What are the real themes? There's always going to be like an A storyline, and then you have to think about like what's the B and C storylines. Like what are the other plots? Look at any comic or read watch any show really and like try to find it. Like, okay, that's the main A storyline. Oh, this is just like a side storyline. It's not as important to the plot, but it helps build character, right? And like teaches us about them. So like we work that stuff in, and you can use those B storylines to kind of help in certain places where you're like, oh, well, I don't have enough room to get all of this stuff in, or I have to fill up extra pages. So using your BNC storylines for that and those can be moved around a little bit more. They don't have to be as linear per se.
You're making me Dark Matter right now, Morgan, which is
I know, right?
Top of mind. I don't know if anyone has seen that show. I'm all in it now.
What show is that?
Dark Matter on Apple.
Matter.
I have not seen that.
No,
you should check it out. It's really good. It's really good.
It's really good and really realistic for like a very high concept sci-fi show.
It's top of mind because Morgan and I were literally talking about it earlier today.
Yeah.
And it's going into the season finale. So
anyway, we started it as like an 8-chapter series, and like I think each one was like between 14 and 18 pages or something like that, and then we broke it down into then it became 7. And then when Massive came out, they were like, can we get it into 6? And like that was tough to like try to finagle some stuff, especially because like all the art was done. Yeah. Right. So it's like we literally had to move stuff. We literally had to look and we had to move certain scenes. We're like, okay, we can take these 4 pages. This actually can still work sliding in here where it doesn't actually affect the story. Like it's tough. But
so what was it like when Massive chose to take this on? How long was the process before we get to the point to where we are now, where we're a month away from print or a month away from it being in LCSs?
Well, we had to, I mean, the tricky part was like we had to first get it back from Heavy Metal. So like we put out a feeler, right, with Massive because we had known that they had initially shown interest. So we reached out to Michael Claro and Kevin and Trevor, and we're like, hey, we know you guys were into this before. Would you guys, if we can get the rights back? I mean, well, we already had the rights, so it wasn't a matter of us getting the rights back. It was a matter of us getting the art. Like we had to buy. We had to buy, by the way. So like when we say creator-owned series, like we went out of pocket for this. Not only have we not made $1 on it yet, we're like tens of thousands of dollars in the hole right now because we believe in this series. But what's cool is like it's ours completely. And Massive has been awesome with like respecting the creators and like really like showing that they like give a crap about us has been awesome. And like that's fun to see in this space.
Yeah,
you know,
they're perfect partners for us on this.
That's fantastic. Okay, so Ramgod, 6 issues. First issue drops in July. And then after that, if Massive picks it up, then you're going to do another 6-issue story arc. Is that correct?
Maybe more. I mean, we'll
maybe
see.
More. Yeah. And then it's just going to kind of go from there. I hope that this series continues for quite a while, because in our initial meetup, we were talking and you said that everything here in these 6 issues and even beyond is just a small portion of what this world has to offer as far as stories go. Is that other places that you have explored inside the world of Ramgod that you're ready to write and tell about?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Remember, we said that this is interesting. We talked about like the corporate sponsors for the teams. Yeah. We spent a lot of time figuring out who would these corporate sponsors be, who were they inspired by. You know, it's a lot of people say like
companies or sort of like, you know, moguls that are
if you think of like, you know, the Amazons and the Googles and the Apple and the Nikes of the world and whatever, they have more influence and control over like the global economy and people's perception than like all the governments in the world, right? So you think about like if they all came together and were like, hey, like this little cabal, and we're like, hey, you know what? Let's decide to influence this and that. And we were kind of like, what would be the equivalent of those type of things and those entities in our world? Right. And if they all own the team and what's going on and all the subtext. So that's where we kind of started.
Wow. Jamie, do you have any other questions before we move on to one of their other projects?
I don't have a question. I got a comment though. And I just want to say that it's been a very, very long time for me. I've read, even all of us on, you know, CODEX have read so many issues, but this is the first time an actual #1 made me want more. Like,
sweet.
It's been a very, very long time. So everyone out there, you never hear me say it. Definitely get issue 1. Like, if I rated it, you guys wouldn't believe me.
That's safe to say, Jamie. I mean,
it's not my fault.
Yeah.
no matter what. So
I've got it set up in my polls right now. I'm going to my LCS tomorrow to talk to them about making sure that they get this on their racks if they haven't already. I mean, other massive titles
texted
give
my
them,
guy
so
for
I
it.
don't see why they wouldn't get this. But this is going to be fantastic, guys. Go to your LCS. Make sure to ask for Ramgod so you can have access to issue number 1, and then continue to buy this because it is that fucking amazing.
There's your
I'll
one
give a
for
shout
the
out to
next
Kanan White here too, who
Yeah,
absolutely.
the art Kanan and Ren, the combo, and our letterer too. The three of them, the trio. Like when we saw issue 1, we knew right away that it was special. Like
Yeah,
also
this
like
is a hit.
I think like as first as I agree with you. As far I've written a bunch of issue 1s before in like first chapters. This one really I feel like has a nice like you're hooked after like the pilot. You're like
Yeah.
I'm in. Okay, I need more. Which I don't. I like Winds of Numa Sera is a much slower start. It's a longer. It's like what a Game of Thrones. Like you're not going to get hooked in after the first episode.
Let's put up that creative team right there, ladies and
And
gentlemen.
as you see at the bottom, the story editor here, Joseph Village, the man, the myth, the legend here.
Who's got a Kickstarter going on himself right now, by the way.
We here at CODEX are big on letterers. We don't think they get enough representation in the industry, and the letters in this book were gorgeous.
Awesome. I mean, he's like literally family, essentially, for us.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So Ramgod, ladies and gentlemen, once again, the link is in the chat. We will throw that in there here momentarily so that way you guys can have access to ordering that. And please talk to your local comic shops and make sure that you get this book. Now, let's talk about the next thing that I am incredibly excited about. I'm a big fantasy guy. Been playing Dungeons and Dragons since I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
First fantasy movie first 2 I ever saw was Dragon Slayer and Excalibur.
Excalibur, what a classic.
Dude, I was too young to watch Excalibur, but I watched it. This Winds of Numa Sera, ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk about this. Sal, if you're still here, pay attention, buddy, because this is fantastic. I haven't read it yet, but I've thumbed through it.
You can't say that it's fantastic. You probably look the artwork like it's great, and obviously I've talked to you about it forever. So
window dressing, window
Mm-hmm.
dressing. This is gorgeous. This is intensely amazing, and I am so excited to read this. So, guys, tell me about this. How did this come up?
So Winds is actually a story that I co-wrote not with my brother, but with my brother from another, Johnny Handler. Okay, when I say that, I've known Johnny Handler longer than I've known my brother, and I'm only 2 years older than my brother. That means, and for context, Johnny and my mom, or Johnny's mom and my mom, met one another when they were in Lamaze class together.
Yeah, that's in the back of the book.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I didn't read it.
So like we've been friends like since we were like little ones, and we're all of us, and Owen, myself, Johnny, and then even my dad, like huge fantasy guys. Like grew up watching the original movie Willow, Neverending Story, like Excalibur,
Legend.
Lord of the Rings.
Our black group. We'll go find some more.
So Winds kind of embodies like all of that sort of, and like a little Pan's Labyrinth. There's like that dark fantasy aspect of it. It's got this slow burn like fantasy aspect. So like when the story begins, like all of like the magic and stuff is really just like myth. It's like similar to Game of Thrones where they say like, oh, well, dragons aren't around anymore, but there's like dragon egg. We don't have any dragons, so we went our own route. We don't have any elves or dwarves. Like we have completely different stuff that we wanted to like create of our own that are all very inspired by like real historical cultures and stuff too, by the way. So I think as you're reading it, you're like, oh, that kind of reminds me of like old Jerusalem a little bit, or like this reminds me of, Native Americans or Norse mythology or a little bit. Like we got a little bit of all that, but we think it really works.
Flipping through it, I saw some of that inspiration from Norse mythology in there. That was fantastic.
Thanks. So yep, there's definitely a little bit of that. But anyway, we wanted to create a story that sort of reawoken that sort of like adventurer, the quester, inside of you. Because it's all about the journey. And so when the story begins, like everyone's kind of starting and like at home, like they're at home. And then like, as the story goes forward, everyone leaves their home and then it becomes a hard, like they are for different reasons, right? Someone's on the run. Someone is like their home is like no longer fertile for land and for like, harvest. So they have to go elsewhere. And so everyone winds up sort of like leaving their home for different reasons. And then like just wanting to get back home or find a new place. And like, that's kind of like a big part of the story. But what's neat about our story is that we follow characters from all different walks of life. So as opposed to like, whereas a Game of Thrones only follows like the regal houses, you actually get to follow like, you follow an empress, but she's orphaned and no longer has any parents left. And she's all alone in the world with the weight of the world on her shoulders. That's a lot for a 12-year-old. And then kind of like the never ending story, you know, like Child Empress, that was heavily inspired by that. And then you have like her stable boy, right? Someone that like literally, worked for her sort of like in the palace that's around this. He's a little bit older than her, but Krill, he's the grandson of like the house mother, which is like pretty much the head of housekeeping for the palace, who ultimately gets like accused of murder and gets framed for murder, and he has to leave the kingdom. And then, you know, we meet the Baron's daughter, who's like this really tough, rebellious woman, like young woman that like what was training to be like a knight in the military, but then
is she the one that was coming in on the big regal scene with the horses and that essential monster or whatever it was?
That's Lelia. That's the 12-year-old Child Empress, the orphan.
Okay.
But Kelisandra's like 18, and she's her dad, like she was supposed to like pretty much take over for him kind of thing, and like her dad wound up bending the knee to Lelia's late father from from Numa Sera, which is the empire. And now she's lost in Numa Seran law, like women cannot serve as knights or like be in the military, but they can in the North. But she's no longer under North code; she's under like Numa Seran law now. So she's like been stripped of all the things that were important to her, and so she's angry at her dad. Oh, and then mind you, a month after her dad bent the knee, Lelia's dad died, like the person that they were scared of, right? So it was like, way to go, Dad! Like you bent the knee, and now we can't like pull out of that. So she's dealing with that. And then the fourth character in the story is Sorsha, who's like this really smart, he's like the black sheep in a family of warriors where they're all in these like stuck in these like dated traditions. And he recognizes that they need to evolve if they're going to survive in this world and this culture. And so all of these sort of different stories swirl together like competing winds. Hence the winds of Numa Sera, like the political winds and like the change of direction that can happen in the story. But the main theme behind it is history is written by the victors. So those who win, the wars or the battles get to tell the narrative and shape it how they see fit, which is, you know, true to our culture too, right? So that was like a big thing for us. And like the really cool thing though about the story is that we've created like our own origin story for this world, right? Like they're gods that created it and like the story behind it. So they have these things called this essence is like this life energy. Right, it flows through all of it. It's like the force, right? You can feel it. You can, but it's we're all made up of it, like molecules and atoms.
It surrounds us. It binds us.
Exactly, all that kind of stuff. So when the first ones, which were like the original gods, had the ability to wield essence, and they could form it into different things, and they made like the planet and trees and oceans and all different life. But ultimately, like it drained their powers. Right. So they got really like weakened from that. And now they had made humans and they had made, you know, the Marineme, all the different cultures and species. And but before, so they were going to like sort of hibernate for centuries. But before they did that, they created these bodies of water, of essence.
Yes, Ace.
They're called the pools of essence. It's almost like imagine like a fountain of youth, but instead of it just being like eternal life, like no, every pool, and we don't know how many there are, but there are not a lot, and they're all hidden like throughout Athera. And each one has a special power, and each one is also safeguarded by what's called an essential, which is a creature that's whose sole duty is to protect the pool, but also decide who gets to drink from it and get the power. So their job is to judge people and give them tests. So if like you were a finder of a pool, like you journey and, you know, there's rumors and myths about these pools. So people would seek them out. And there's, according to the Sinigil, which is the religion, the old like Bible pretty much of Numa Seran culture, the one and only person to have ever found a pool and been deemed worthy, because some people have found it, but no one had supposedly ever been deemed worthy, was Jonas Avisi, first of his name, had found the pool, was given a test, passed the test, and was granted the ability, and it gave him these like special powers. So Jonas Avisi is Lelia, who's like the little, you know, the young girl, is like great grandfather, right? And so she, the firstborn child, what man or woman, doesn't matter, of every single Avisi in that bloodline is supposedly like has special powers that course through them, and they're like part of the ordained bloodline, chosen by the gods, pretty much, or at least by a demigod.
Anyway, there's a lot here. Morgan could go on and on about it. Don't worry, I'll be the younger brother who's like, stop.
I can't wait to dive into this. Go ahead, Jamie.
I was going to say that it's a lot, but it's worth listening to. I feel like you pitched this a few times. Like
he has indeed.
It's a hard thing, to condense quickly because there's like so much going on in the story that it's like
it's very different than Ramgod in that way.
Ramgod's much easier to tell. Like it's much more straight line and like
it's linear more than it is. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, this is no pun intended. This is massive, and it needs to be. I love that deep, rich fantasy storytelling. The stuff that you
he's breaking it out. He's breaking it out here.
The stuff that you have to pay attention to and read and really dive into, and this has got me hooked. Like just window shopping alone, I'd have grabbed this. And all the information on the back and things like that, and flipping through, looking at the artwork. This is incredible. But yeah, you just held up something pretty awesome that I want to talk about.
Why don't you hold them up again? I'll throw you up in a bigger screen there and get my face out of here.
Oh, hi, Jamie.
Hi, me.
Look at that.
So what you're looking at, this is the board game. Wins and Numa Sera, the board game. It's something we've been working on for the last pretty much since the graphic novel. Like we started on that. We were like, we want to make a game out of it. And it actually, Johnny jokes about this. We made Philip Cruz, who's the artist that did this cover, right? We had him do like this epic all-in character poster that features like 26 different characters and stuff. And Philip is not cheap, okay? And well, he's worth every penny. But I needed to convince my partner, right, to pretty much like, can we spend the money on this poster? And he's like, I'm not spending whatever over $10,000 on a poster. I hear you. That's a lot of money. I don't even have that money like liquid to spend on this. So he's like, well, if we can somehow use that artwork for something else, right, outside of just a poster or a wraparound cover or something, then I'd be open to that. And I was like, I kind of jokingly was like, well, maybe we make a board game or a card game or something like that. And he was like, yeah, let's do that.
Done.
And, but to be fair, like that was I signed up for something that I was not ready for at all.
Thanks, Al.
So, we're really good at making stuff look nice. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious just from if you go to a website or whatever, look at it, like we get that part of it. And we're not good at storytelling and writing, right? I feel confident as a writer. I'm well trained as a writer at this point. I've had great mentors. Board games was like a brand new thing for me. And I wasn't good at it. Because we made our first iteration, and what like now in hindsight, 5 years later, like you don't start going straight to the pretty stuff. You have to like just get the mechanics down right, and like what kind of game is it? Like I learned so much, and so did Owen and Johnny throughout this process. Like it was so hard, but and people are critical in the gaming space. I mean, you think that like comic readers might be critical, players, gamers, because it's so interactive and people do it together. They like all discuss what's wrong with the game, and then like together. And you only have so many opportunities to get someone to play it. So anyway, we spent 5 years play testing the game, revising it. We consulted with gaming experts, with like pro game designers, with publishers in this space, and then like now the same people. Like I just remember the first test group we ever brought it to, played the game, and we were like, "So what do you think of it?" And they were like, "It's beautiful." And we're like, "But what do you think of the game?" And they're like, "Honestly," and we're like, "Yeah, pull no punches. Like it's early. Like we have time to make changes, no matter how big or small." And they're like, "It's not good. It's pretty boring, and like there's not a lot of like strategy, but it looks great." And I was like determined at that point. I'm like, "No, we got to make a good game." So we were just like, "We'll do this however long it takes." And we just started doing research and doing homework. And like, okay, how do we make a good game? Who could teach us properly? Like, so we had people read our book and then start like, finding ways to like really help us understand game making. But we were big on like, we don't want you to make the game for us. We want you to tell us what's wrong about the game and why it's wrong, and let us be creative to propose solutions to you.
Exactly.
But what really helped us.
Remember we said about best idea wins.
Yeah.
Like
no egos with this. So what we did is we just started like asking, like we created a community like of hundreds of different playtests. We started going to conventions and like little focus groups and whatever else. We would go to like little gaming taverns and like places where people got together, and we would just be like, "Hey, we have a game," and because it looked nice, and we were also like published, writers, and like I think people were more open to letting us like kind of play test our game at their places and stuff, or like they wanted to play because it looks pretty. They're like, "Yeah, I'll take a look, I'll try it, sure." Plus, we're super passionate and really aggressive, so try saying no to us.
Yeah. Especially him.
Yeah, I feel like Morgan never gets a no. There's like, yes, just
I get
Thank
plenty
you.
of no's.
He gets no's, but he'll get you to a yes. He'll wear you down. He'll wear you down.
So let's talk about the Kickstarter then. What goals do you guys have in mind? What incentives are there? That sort of thing. And I know that it starts July 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. July 9th is by the way, we hadn't officially announced that yet, but
sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's gonna be the target date. We just promised that our like that's so like we just settled on that like very, very recently. So we'll be informing our
spoilers,
peeps.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Only here at Codex do we spoil everything.
But yeah, incentives, Kickstarter. Let's talk about
So
that.
like the biggest thing for us was like we don't need to raise money to like finish the game's done. Like maybe we might make a little like we've gotten like some like as we've been sending it out for reviews, which by the way have been incredible. So anyone that does their homework on this game, you'll actually see our game no longer sucks. It's actually pretty good. Gaming Trend rated it a 95 out of 100. Same rating as Gloomhaven, which we were like, whoa, we're on the same.
This is our first game.
But we did our homework. Like we did not. This is not just like, oh, we're just throwing it up. Like 5 years doing this. On this,
like we went to PAX East like a couple of years ago, right? In Boston, and people were like, from the design alone, you could launch your Kickstarter. They were like, you could launch your Kickstarter like in a couple months and like
sell it, like
and you probably would be good. But they were like, it looks good, it plays okay. But they were like, so you could do that, and we were like, we don't want okay.
Thanks.
We don't want okay. We just don't want. I don't want
okay. That doesn't work for us. That's not how we are. We want the game mechanics to match the design.
Well, you don't want to put out a subpar product, right?
Yeah. Especially our first out the get-go. Like,
exactly,
no way.
Right?
And then it only get better with expansions that you got to buy later.
Yeah, we're big believers. It's like
we've already had those planned too.
Like a restaurant, you're only as good as your worst dish, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we've as we said, we're perfectionists in our own way. And we really listened to the players and the fans, and like we were just like,
we really would ask them, be like, what do you guys want to see in like the deluxe version? They're like, could you come up with like some really cool dice, like a dice that no one else has? And we're like, yeah. So for anyone who's seen, I don't have it for me right now.
Challenge accepted.
So was there a lot of beta testing then on your guys' end?
Literally 5 years, like I would say almost 1,000 different people have played our game, like beta tested it and given us feedback. In fact, in the rule book itself, some of the people that were most involved, we as a thank you, we added their name into the rule book.
That's
as
wonderful.
that's awesome. There's like 30 or 40 names in there of like people that just had like been hanging around and like giving us feedback and like really helping us out with that. And we're like, credit to where credit's due, guys. Like, this game, that's also why we feel like this game is really special, because like it's not just us, it's like our world and story and stuff, but like really there's a lot of like players that touch this game and help shape it. Like literally as we were play testing it, as someone gave it, they're like, you know, it'd be cooler if like you could, after you took a stronghold, you'd get the money immediately as opposed to having to wait. And we're like, cool, can you guys play it again? Like next turn, start doing it that way. And they would give us real-time feedback, like, yeah, that's way more fun. Cool. So we just, and they would give us feedback afterwards. We had them like fill out little surveys and stuff too afterwards.
Also, an important thing to note here for your fans and viewers here is you don't have to have read the graphic novel to enjoy playing the game. And I always say this, like it's definitely enjoyable. We've seen plenty of people already like beta test this and whatever, and have not read the graphic novel who loved it. But I will say this, because this is noticeable. If you have read the graphic novel and you play this game, you're going to freaking love it. Because it just takes the world and the characters and the lore, and it shows you, and just a totally different element, and you interact with the world in a completely different way.
I'll give you specifics. So like little examples that I think you're like, oh, that makes sense. So the characters themselves, right? Every one of the heroes, you can play as 12 heroes, right? And they're from 4 different like houses or factions. And each one of the factions themselves has their own unique playing style, right? So like the CN Day, who are like the warrior tribe from the south, they're very aggressive players. They're like really good at attacking, but not good at building in the game, right? You can build and attack in the game, or I should say, or attack. You can't do both in the same turn. You have to like pick routes. So your choices are important. And like the what if only I had done this in my last turn, I would have won, or like if I had one more turn, I would have had you kind of thing is like a big theme. But anyway, the heroes themselves, the characters, our goal was like, how can we make their individual powers, because they all have like a special ability. It's not like a superpower, but it's like an ability that is unique to that hero. Right. How do we make it echo or parallel like their essence of who, no pun intended, of who they are in the story, right? Like, so for example, Sorsha is the smart one. He's like the really like learned, like curious son in the warrior tribe. So when he enters the game, he gets to start with like a learned skill, like as if he's like smarter than everyone else, almost like he's got like an advantage over everyone else.
Nice.
So, like that's cool.
Yeah, it's very reflective of the characters that are in there, and basically, just so Morgan doesn't go too deep on it, is that each kingdom has its own build tree, which is reflective.
Like in a video game, right? If you're like, depending on what class you were, right? Like they all have their own.
Are we losing Morgan?
Oh, it sounds like it. The winds of Numa Sera have blown his way a little too hard, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, his internet is not great.
Well, while we're waiting for him to come back, Owen,
you're fuzzy.
Yeah, Owen, why don't you go into the process of your involvement with Winds of Numa Sera?
Yeah, so basically, this was kind of Morgan and Johnny created the actual graphic novel first, and then I kind of, as I said before, Ramgod was my first kind of venture in as like a co-creator. I did more of like the production type stuff and some of the business stuff, but basically my involvement there is they had the graphic novel and we're like, hey, we want to figure out what else to kind of do with this, and we have large hopes for this in terms of potentially adapting it. There, we lost him. So he'll probably join via his phone or something else. And essentially we were like, hey, how can we, they brought me in to kind of strategize and figure out other mediums that this property could exist in and be successful in. And as I said, I was involved from the beginning in terms of like, hey, like we have this great artwork and like we should probably make a game with it. And that was really Johnny's idea first. And then we were like, hey, how do we build off of this? We don't know really how to make a game. And I said this in the pre-show to you guys.
Yeah.
We thought creating a graphic novel and a comic series was hard. Try creating a board game. Like it's just the mechanics, the next level world building. It's like creating a video game. You know what I mean? And player interactivity. It's more complex than a movie. It's just, you just have to be so creative and think of everything. And
many more moving parts to
so
it.
Many,
yeah.
So many more. And
there's stuff you didn't even probably think of getting into it that were brought to your attention later. Like,
oh yeah. And as I said, like people, the community, we were like, hey, the comic and graphic novel community, like they can be pretty harsh with their feedback if they don't like something. Yeah, nothing compared to the gaming community. Gaming community will rip you a new asshole.
They'll be incredibly
they went wild on this at first, and we were just like, oh, okay, they're really holding no punches and whatever. Yeah. But as I said, like best idea wins. Like we can take it. I'm always like, if you're gonna knock an idea or something or like poke a hole in anything, be my guest, but don't do it without giving us a solution on how to do it better. Like, cool, how would you write it? How would you do this different?
Right, exactly.
And see if anything comes, like a lot more.
Absolutely. And as Morgan said, at least with the game aspect of it, this is one of those things where it was like, hey, we listened to the players and the fans. When they were like, what, do you ever think about doing it like that? We were like, that's a fucking genius idea. Yeah, we didn't think about that, but now we are, and we're going to do it.
See, and that's so awesome having so many beta testers, because you get that you get those different ideas, some linear, some crazy, some way the hell out there, and you get to take all of that feedback together and really decide what works and what doesn't.
Totally.
Especially if it's the same feedback too. Like if it's something that you didn't have in there, and like 80 people will say, hey, actually this would be a cooler idea if you guys did this way. You can implement that, or you could just be like,
absolutely. And then it's just a great sounding board, and in the same way that like Marvel and whatever will come out with all of this stuff, and Star Wars does this too, and it's like a smack in the face to the fans. The people who read this stuff and have loved this, and the biggest supporters of like the stories and the brands and all that stuff. And it's like, why? Listen to the fans. They know better than you. I'm sorry. They might not know how to tell a perfect story in like a TV show or a film medium or a video game or whatever, but they are the ones who love the source material. So like, do it justice, because there are great stories there that have been neglected forever.
Don't even get me started on Zeb Wells and the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, dear baby Jesus. I mean, even Marvel as a whole, like them as a whole, is yeah.
Welcome back, Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars
Thanks,
is kind of is making a lot of those same mistakes, I find. And
Well, what was it like with the new series Acolyte that's come out? I have not watched that, but I have seen so many different polarizing articles about that, where one article says Star Wars is toxic and it's because of you, or Acolyte is the best thing for Star Wars, but the reason why it's tanking is because you hate it. And then things on the other side of the spectrum. With the type of feedback that you guys got for Winds of Numa Sera, I know, Owen, you were talking a little bit about how that affected the course of the creation of the game. But Morgan, was there any kind of personal affection or anything like that with negative feedback or not constructive criticism?
So I have a big thing, which is if you're gonna shit on it, Owen, I don't know if Owen said this while I was gone, but like if you're gonna shit on something, you have, or like that we're working on, whatever it is, like you can't just point out problems. You have to propose some sort of a solution.
Right.
Like it has to be constructive. I don't respond well to just straight up like, yeah, it's not good or whatever. Like,
yeah,
okay,
this mechanic is shit. Why is it in
like,
there?
Yeah, it's like, okay, why isn't it good? Like help me understand, like big picture. Like it's not like right now there's too many negative things that can happen during your turn, which make your turns like 50-50 chance it's fun or not fun for you. So I'm like, okay, when I think of it like that, cool. So the goal is I have to make sure that no matter what on your turn, even if something bad happens, you still leave your turn feeling like you were productive and something fun happened on every turn.
Yeah. And we were talking about like, like just having constructive criticism. Like, let's be honest, in 2024, like people love to hate, right? The trolls everywhere. People love to hate. It's like, think about it. If you leave a restaurant and you have a bad experience, right? Your first inclination is to like, I want to give them a bad review and do this. When you leave a restaurant, and you have an amazing experience. Do you think to really be like, I'm going to give them a great review? You just kind of like, that was great. And you move on to the next thing. But things that are bad and you had a bad experience, you really dwell on it. You hold it.
Well, like
I want to shit on this to everyone and anyone.
Yeah, working in customer service, I've been doing that since I was 16 years old. What do people remember? They remember the negatives.
Yeah.
They never remember the positives. The positives are to be expected. The negatives are what they don't want to have happen, and when they do, that's what everybody talks about.
I don't know if that's true though. I mean, like, maybe that's just like a personal thing for me, but like, I'm just naturally like a very positive person. I gravitate toward positivity. I think like whatever you put out there is like usually what you get back to some degree, I feel like. So like there's certain things, the older I get, the more that I'm able to recognize certain the way things made me feel, both bad and good, right? But where I used to spend a lot of time complaining about things, now I'm like, I really appreciate things that were really special and good. And like the main reason that I do what I do, or write and create stuff, is like, I like as an artist to create things and put myself out into the world in that way. I feel like it gives me an opportunity to like outlive my time on Earth potentially. More importantly is like, I love knowing that something that I just created and made up affected someone's emotions. Like I've had people tell me like, oh, I cried when I read this story, or like when I got to this part, like, oh my God, that resonated with me. I really like connected with that. And like, that's cool, because I feel that way when I listen to music, when I, read certain comics, when I watch certain movies, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And like to be on the other side of that too, like where I was able to like make something up that evoked emotion, excitement, fear, whatever it may be. Right. Like
that nostalgia feel.
Yeah, it becomes like, I can think back like my formative years. Like I know instances that like were like changed my life with certain thing where I like experienced an emotion for the first time, and that anytime I go to write that kind of a scene, I go back, I tap into that. I'm like, I remember that scene. How did that make me feel? Why did it make me feel that way? Okay, right to that.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, like give a reason why. We feel the same way. And even if you guys have checked out any of the reviews we've done so far for Massive, like even if it's a little issue I had, I always try to give like, well, if maybe they did it this way, I'd change the score, But to me right now, as it sits, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So we'll be definitely reviewing both at this point. Like,
Oh, yeah.
trust me, there'll be reviews out for everything you guys do. I think this is gonna be the first time we're gonna do issue by issue review too for
Mhm.
Ramgod. I think we discussed that, Tim.
The last time we did an issue by issue review
Was Maw.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Oh
for
yeah, when
Numa.
yeah,
Yeah.
crossover alternative.
Yeah, that was amazing. Well, all right. Chat, if you have any questions for Morgan or Owen, please throw them out there. Jamie, do you have any other final thoughts or any other
Oh,
final questions?
there's a question I do have. I ask every interview we've done. Being in that industry and having that inspiration of comics from a young age, what are you guys reading right now that maybe you want to throw out there for people that might not have heard of it? And what's on your pull list if you have one?
Hulk 180.
Oh,
Facsimiles all year.
twice
So
done.
you guys, because I don't ever want to bullshit anyone. I've been so overwhelmed with what we're working on right now that I don't have the creative capacity to like get into another series and get hooked on it. Like, and if I'm going to, it's usually like I'm just watching TV, brain dead at the end of the night after having poured everything that I have creatively into my projects and things like that. So I don't have any like new series that I'm currently like following or getting.
Yeah, I'm actually happy that he said that, because this actually it kind of strikes an emotional chord for us. I'm glad that you asked that, Jamie, because I mean, especially from my perspective, right? Where like Ramgod, for example, is the first thing I've ever written and created, and this has been a real labor of love. And we even talked to you about the political journey that we went on with heavy metal to find it to this place. Like, I have yet to hold this book in my hand and go to a comic store and pull it off the shelf and be like, I wrote and created this. Morgan has had that feeling before with numerous
Owen, when you do that, you need to walk in there and just sign your name on the inside of the first page.
Sure. I would love to do that. I just know it's going to be a very emotional experience for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also know that what Morgan is talking about is like this summer in particular is a very big summer for us in a myriad of ways. But there are these things between the board game and for Winds of Numa Sera and Ramgod that we have worked on for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And this is like beyond just a labor of love. And we have so much personally invested into these things. And we're finally getting it to a point where like we just see if people like it. And like at the end of the day, if they mess with it or they don't, but it's one of those things where like we are very big on like not living life with regret in the way of like knowing that we took our best shot and that like whatever happens, whatever the response, we can live with it because we put our best foot forward and we gave it our all. And like I encourage everyone, anytime we've ever had interns or we talk to anyone who's a creative or whatever, we'll like, just be be diligent and put your best foot forward. Perseverance is key. Do not give up. We're very big on like, it's like the Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality. It's like plan A, plan A, plan A, because the less you give, the more you give to plan B, the less you're giving to plan A.
Exactly.
A lot of people will be like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's like, life is short. It's random. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people all the time.
Dogs and cats living together.
Yeah,
Scary.
exactly. So it's as I said, it's when you were asking us about our favorite stuff, like we have been so hyper focused on the products that we are trying to bring to market that like I would love some more of that free time to be able to disconnect and get to what other people are doing. But we just have been so single track mind to get this thing out there to see how, fans and audiences will respond to our content that, that's basically just consumed us. And
Well,
something else would not be true.
I gotta say, just from that, well, real fast, because obviously Sal with the question at the end.
Will you do
I know the next
cons?
question is, are you guys going to be in Baltimore Comic-Con this year? I can already ask you that one.
Baltimore, I'm not sure about. I mean, as I said, we're New Yorkers, so New York Comic-Con is a staple for us.
Right.
And I know we have some other conventions like kind of on our docket to go to. Morgan, you want to take it?
So yeah, we're definitely, the goal is to go to as many as we can, but like we're honestly like dead broke right now. We're so like over budget with everything that we're trying to do for this marketing launch for Wins and with Ramgod, because again we had to pay for that out of pocket and stuff like that. So it's like we want. I love. There's nothing I think I like more than interacting with like people that like the same stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And because people are passionate about this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can't be into comics and this kind of genre stuff without getting excited about it, right?
I mean, you guys understand you exist in this community. You thrive off of this community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I feed off the energy of other people. Like I remember when I would work at the conventions, like at a booth, like early on when I had Treadwater 12 years ago and no one knew who. I mean, still not that many people know who I am, but like when nobody knew who I was, and I'm like, I would have to try to get people's like to stop. I'd be like, first thing I'd point to people. I'd be like, you, because you point at someone and they look at you, right? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, are you having a good time? And they're like, yeah. And then I'd be like, do you want to hear about an awesome new series from the creator? And they'd be like, yeah, okay. And then I just like start talking to them about it. And like the next thing I know, like they'd get a book or something like that and then come back the next day and be like, yo, I read the first stuff. It was really cool, man. Like I just told, really awesome. They want to talk about it. Like that is such an awesome interaction. I built so many relationships doing that kind of thing. So I love going to cons. We're definitely going to go to New York Comic Con. Not going to make it to San Diego Comic Con because it's extremely expensive and far away. Baltimore. When is the Baltimore?
September.
Yeah, that's going to be doable, I think.
Because it's kind of a special date for us, kind of like you guys said, the emotional aspect. This will be the first time the team will be together in one room.
Yeah.
Ever?
For the first time.
Ever.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
We're spread across the country. I'm in
that.
Tennessee. Jamie's in Wisconsin.
We actually, honestly, like that kind of hit a spot for me because it's like, it's like people who play like Call of Duty and like they play Call of Duty with someone, and they never actually are in the same room. You mentioned like the giving love to our letterer, right?
Oh, yes.
So Morgan can talk about this, but our letterer Nahi is based in the Maldives, and we've known him for 10 plus years and are very close with him, and we've never been in the same room with him.
Wow.
I've never physically met the guy, but I know him so well. We've both been through some really hard, dark places in our life, like different levels where it was tough, and like we've been there for one another. And he's like as close. It's so weird for someone that I've never met. He's like a pen pal that I work with that I also love. Like I genuinely love this.
Yeah.
Jamie and I have known each other for over 3 years. I'm an uncle to his soon-to-be. He's an uncle to my kids. It's crazy. I mean, we've spent
we both helped each other through some dark times.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet each other?
We met each other. That's funny. Let me put
that. You want to talk about that interview process? No.
Yeah.
I started CODEX like 3 years ago. I'll make a long story short. And it was started off with just it was just a podcast where we talk about like comic news. We talk about reviews that we were doing, and then we kind of came up with segments in the middle. And I wanted to expand because I had a bigger vision for the channel itself. So we put out like, hey, I want to be able to tell like audio stories without taking it word for word. I want to give more like imagination to what it is.
Dramatic story.
We put it out there, and Tim had basically answered. And the funniest thing is the first thing he said to me in an interview, he's like, I interviewed Todd McFarlane and this person and this person and this person. I was like, yo, calm down. Like,
I was prepared. This was a job interview to me. I was ready to go, and I was name dropping names of people that I had interviewed in the past. I've done creative storytelling and things like that. I know how to write, well, not as good as you guys, but good enough.
Don't sell yourself short, Tim.
But we blistered up to this. What we have now, we do 3 live shows a week and constant reviews. Trust me, I've been up with Tim, and I've literally messaged him at 3 in the morning. I got an idea. And he's just like, Jamie, go to sleep. I'm like, I can't. Like, it just doesn't turn off for me.
This has been 3
I'm going to apologize
years.
real fast for not talking most of this. I've been battling a cold this whole week, and I'm trying not to lose my voice. So bear with me. I just wanted to make sure I was here,
Jamie, this has been 3 years of incredibly hard work, not only on our end, but with the rest of the team. We've got an amazing
24
team
plus hour days.
Have rounded out. These guys are amazing. Gary, Wes, Dan, Sal, Sonny, Jamie, myself.
Bringing on Precious.
Yeah, Precious, his girlfriend. It's fantastic. Doing decoding panels was amazing. I get to write. I get to do creative writing and dramatic storytelling. If you guys haven't checked it out, shameless plug, go ahead and take a look at that. I highly recommend Punisher, Circle of Blood. I got in trouble from my neighbors for screaming and yelling, pretending to be Jigsaw. They thought I was killing somebody in my apartment. But yeah, it's been great. Like similar to you guys, pouring your heart and soul, being hyper focused on the projects that you're working on, Ramgod and Winds of Numa Sera. That's Jamie and I. Many
manifest destiny, guys. Manifest
yeah,
destiny.
yeah.
And even though I tell people like what we do, I say it with a passion. Like we got 4 million subscribers, and we don't even have near those numbers, but we always want to champion the artists. We want to push what you guys do,
And
like
the
anybody else,
letters.
and the letter, like the whole creative team. We want to make sure they're known in some way.
It takes a team.
Yeah.
It totally takes a team, and things are always more complicated than they look. Sometimes people think it's just so easy to make this thing, and you can just come out with.
I've tried. It's
By
not.
the way, we put the entire creative team on the covers of all of our books. It's something that
I see that.
we're big on. Like it, yeah, Johnny and my name might be on the top line of the thing, but like literally
There are 8 names. Yeah,
like, that's not normal. But we're like, you deserve the cover. You guys were collaborators on this thing. Like, I think that's also like earned us some, like, I don't know, some love from the artists too, because we respect them. Like, treat them as. And by the way, in some cases, like, we're paying them, right? Like us as creatives. Sorry about that.
I got dogs too, so don't feel bad.
Yeah. Little help. But anyway, like my point though is that like it could just be work for hire, but we're like, nah, like you are like you are an integral piece in this puzzle. Like we would not have this book if you were not involved in it. It would be something else.
Exactly. Well, I think that is a poignant place to take this interview to rest. If you guys have any final thoughts, we'll go ahead and start tagging out, showing places where you can find Ramgod, Winds of Numa Sera, their creative studio, and so much more.
And I would think it'd be safe to say by issue 6, would you guys be willing to come back and talk whole series?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you get to the end, for sure.
Absolutely.
And you can,
and then probably by the end of Kickstarter too, if you will make something work in between there.
Yeah, for sure. No, we love you guys. Awesome. Like we're happy to come on a bunch of times if like you guys will have us for sure.
That's fantastic. Our door is
Thank
always
you guys
open.
for everything and being on. I mean, it's been fun. As much like I said, as I haven't talked, you guys are amazing. So
thank you.
Well,
these are all labor of love, man. This is this is what we want to do full time. We do basically do it full time at the neglect of so much other stuff.
I tell people I got 2 jobs and one pays and one isn't yet.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's just
you said the right answer.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
You know, it's, as I said, manifest that stuff.
The best job doesn't pay yet.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ramgod right here. This is what you need to find. This is what you need to get, and you can go right there and get that. And also, please go to your local comic shops. Make sure that this is going to be on the shelves because this is something you do not want to miss out on. Also, ladies and gentlemen, for Ramgod and Winds of Numa Sera, head over to darkrose.io, Morgan and Owen's creative studio. There is a ton of stuff on there for you guys to filter through. You will not be disappointed. Also, with Winds of Numa Sera, you can head right over here to windsofnumasera.com. For that specifically, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get a hold of this. This is on my reading for this weekend. I cannot wait to review this. I cannot wait.
It might be a team review on this one because I've already got brushes in on this.
Yeah, and then Owen, explain this even more. Winds of Numa Sera.
Yeah, that's basically. Well, I'll let Morgan does a better job at explaining this.
Anyway, real quick, so just for everyone else out there, the first 2 on the previous website you were at, just the Winds of Numa Sera without the play in the front of it. If you go to windsofnumasera.com, that one you can actually read the first 2 chapters of the graphic novel for free of Winds there. So if anyone wants to get free, like the digital version's up there, and it's like I think it's like you get like 40 something pages. Like have fun to see if it's your if it's your cup of tea or not. Yeah, because it's a big story, so it's like it's not for everyone. If you're like you like more of the single protagonist, like linear storyline all the way through, like definitely not for you. But if you like real like fantasy, dark fantasy that is relatable and grounded, right, with like a lot to get into, like Winds is for you. And then the other one, the play, that one, that's like specifically for the board game. So like
Nice.
the main website is like just like everything wins. It's like, here's the graphic novel. Here's a little bit about, you can also, we did something really cool recently, which is there's a Kingdoms of Aethera personality test. So in anticipation, so like, as you can see, there's like the, you know, the 4 different kingdoms. This one probably shows it like the colors a little bit better. So like each one comes from a different kingdom. You can find out which kingdom your personality is most aligned with. So if you go to windsofnumasera.com, there's like a little, one of the, you'll see it when you scroll. It says like, take the Kingdoms of Aethera personality test. And then it's cool. It like warps you to our world. And then like it asks you, it puts you in scenarios. And as a ruler, you have to decide how you would handle these disputes, or like this scenario, you know, like you have a neighboring country or vassal that's like under attack. And like, do you send aid and risk weakening your thing? And like
choose your own adventure.
Things.
That's
and then based on your answers, it's like you were most aligned with the Kingdom of Moran. And here's why. You were most aligned with
Exactly.
Numa Sera. It's cool.
Yeah.
That's
and the Kickstarter is coming out, so
yes,
support us.
ladies and gentlemen, we will be doing a lot with that Kickstarter as soon as it releases. So stay tuned to the codexstation.com for information in regards to the Winds of Numa Sera Kickstarter. You can also go right there to windsofnumasera.com where there will be more information. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far, we greatly appreciate it. We love the fact that you're here. Chat, you have been fantastic tonight, as always, and we do this because of you. So with that being said, Jamie, we've got something. We want to give it to them. What would that be?
Yeah, that'd be all the socials. Find us at the Codex Station on all social platforms. Oh yeah, type in Codex Station. That's where you find it.
There you go. Please make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss content like this all the time, every time. And you need to look too cool for school, so you need to head over to thecodexstation.com for all your Codex needs. Get some merch, meet the team, and so much more, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thecodexstation.com. Morgan, Owen, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I know we've kept you a little bit longer than we probably should have.
Pleasure. We could talk about this forever.
Hey, we've got forever.
Real fast, for everybody that's watching this right now, all the links for everything that we talked about tonight are going to be in the description down below. So go click on them, go support them. You need to.
There you go.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah,
Appreciate
no
you guys.
problem.
You guys are awesome, man.
Well, thank you very much. You guys are fantastic.
We'll
You're
be back.
massively amazing.
As Arnold says, we'll be back.
There you go.
I
All
just
right,
watched
ladies.
last night, by the way.
The best ever.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim the Terrible. This beautiful man over here is J-Dubs. Down below is our special guests, Morgan and Owen Rosenblum, the creators of Ramgod and Winds of Numa Sera. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to check this out. We will see you next time. Oh, where was the world created? Does anybody know its first appearance?
Hulk 180.
Thank you.
Thank
There
you.
we go.
Come on, man. Leia.
Right on. All right, guys. We love you. We'll see you later.
All right, take care.